It's funny. I live in Texas. I mean, which is about as gun, pro gun state as you can get.
Yeah.
And I still run into people on a regular basis. They ask me what I do, and they're like, "Oh, don't you need a special license, or aren't those illegal and stuff
Yeah,
like
that's what
that?"
everybody thinks.
Yeah, and so suppressors, especially the last 10 years, have become much more mainstream, but they still are nowhere near. I don't know what percentage of gun owners own suppressors, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And the way people usually get into suppressors is because a buddy there, they usually go to the range when they'll go on a hunt or something like that, and their buddy will have one, and they shoot that, and then they, conversation, oh, wait, aren't these hard to get? This, that, and the other, and it makes a huge difference when you shoot. I mean, my uncle is in his 80s, and he's got a Barrett 338 Lapua that he always brags about and stuff like that. I've been trying to get him to get a suppressor for this gun for, I don't know, 5-10 years. And finally it like clicked. He was like, I think I want a suppressor. And so I got him a suppressor, and he's like, oh, this is a night and day difference. And I don't, it doesn't rattle my teeth when I shoot. And I was like,
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. Hope you're having a good summer. We are. It's going by fast, which is kind of a bummer, but also, September 1 is pretty close, and a lot of us have stuff to do in September. Even Joe has got his grizzly hunt here in less than a month. So fall is coming fast. So it's exciting for us. Today, I wanted to talk suppressors. It's a new tech. It's not a new technology. It's just a very hot topic right now. It's something that's becoming increasingly popular in the hunting world. So I figured I would bring my friend Darrell on to shed some information, give some of his thoughts on suppressor. So Darrell, why don't you introduce yourself?
hey, James, I appreciate you having me on. So my name is Darrell Morrow. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales for Huxwrx. Been in the Second Amendment community since about 2002. Started out working, at a dealer doing outside sales for law enforcement, actually, and then became an independent rep. From there, was one of the original 511 guys. And then on the commercial side, my background really has been on the suppressor side. So I was a director of sales of a major suppressor company before this, and then came over here about 3 years ago. So been a lifelong hunter, grew up in Louisiana, and then moved to Florida. So started hunting at a very early age. Did a lot of waterfowl hunting, some whitetail hunting, and then I live in Texas now. So as you can see behind me, big time whitetail guy. I got at least about 45 minutes from my house, so it's nice and convenient.
Nice.
And then do a lot of nighttime pig hunting, which suppressors come in really handy for that.
Yeah.
So if it's, and just excited to be on the show.
Yeah. No, good to have you. So Louisiana, huh? I was just there with my first time this year.
Oh, wow. Where'd you go?
I went to New Orleans and did kind of like around there and did. Okay, so you did nothing like, cool, like people. I'm very touristy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I graduated from LSU, so I'm a big fan of New Orleans. I have a lot of good memories there.
Yeah, I had some of the all the Louisiana food and did the whole thing. So it was yeah, good time though. Saw a alligator roadkill, which is a first for me, like a 10-foot alligator. Oh yeah, it's not seen that before. I'm used to deer and raccoons basically. So
Yeah, yeah.
so you've been hunting your whole life. How'd you get into it? How'd you become
Uh,
a hunter?
yeah, I mean, hunting's always been a big part of our family life. My dad, started, my dad actually passed away when I was 6. And so, but I do, some of my early memories are shooting, Coke cans with a bolt action 22 single shot. And then, remember going duck hunting with him. And then once he passed away, my uncle, who was a big time waterfowl hunter, he was always making sure my brother and I were with him. And then we moved to Florida. And then my cousin Ricky, who is kind of my father figure, he's about 8 years older than me. We had a farm that we would go, a lot of squirrel hunting, deer hunting. We'd rush some ponds and tell you funny stories. So I think I was probably 11 or 12, and we rushed. It was me, my brother, and my cousin Ricky, and we rushed this pond and scudded up some ducks, and I shot a Drake wood duck. And then and it was about, I mean, for Florida, it was cold. It was in the 40s.
Yeah.
So my brother and my cousin Ricky convinced me that if it was their first wood duck, they would go swimming and get it. So you could got my skivvies and took off in this pond. And my adrenaline was high enough to when I grabbed the duck, I was all happy. And then I turn around, I'm swimming back. This is probably 20 yards in the water.
Yeah.
When I'm swimming back, I look for my brother and my cousin. I can't see them because they're literally on the ground laughing so hard. So
I mean, it's classic, brother cousin stuff.
yeah. But my brother, when I got there, kind of freaked out because he thought my mom was gonna kill me or
Yeah,
kill him.
yeah.
So he started, trying to draw me off and stuff. And my cousin Ricky was still on the ground laughing.
Yeah, those things like crap. I'm gonna get in trouble now. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. It's funny the influence like an older cousin or an older, really old, a lot older brother or whatever can have. Had a cousin like that showed me a lot of the hunting ropes growing up. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was really cool a couple of years ago. My cousin lives. I live in DFW area, North Texas, and then my cousin lives down in Houston. So I was able to bring him up to my deer lease a couple years ago, and he got a nice 10 point, I think it was. So just to pay it back and kind of
Yeah.
come full circle on that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you said you got, do you say this 2A mark,
Second Amendment.
say amendment market is it? Okay. How'd you get into that? How'd you
Dumb luck, really. As my mom said, growing up, I was always into knives, spears, and hand grenades. And I was when I graduated college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, be when I grow up. And so I spent a couple of years bouncing around. I started working selling life insurance, and I was horrible at that. Then worked retail for a minute, as an archery tech at a gun store in Louisiana.
Yeah.
But then went back into outside sales for sell scanners, sucked at that. Then went to, I like to cook. So went to work for a food service company that, was expanding into Louisiana, and then, selling to restaurants, kind of like a Cisco. And then, they decided to pull out of the territory. And so I got laid off. My next door neighbor was the manager of this indoor range gun store that also had this little small cop shop. And, he had mentioned to me that they were looking for somebody in outside sales. And so that got my foot in the door. Um, and if you kind of think of SHOT Show, have you been to SHOT Show before?
I've not been Joaz.
Okay.
I probably will be good.
Yeah. So,
Here.
so SHOT Show is, my first SHOT Show, I think was 2002. They got the main floor with all the outdoor companies, Browning, Leupold, all those guys. But then they have a dedicated LE section. So once you get into that, what I'll call community, that kind of opens the door to get into, you can go left or right, left being law enforcement, right being commercial. I stayed on the LE side from 2002 to about 2015, or no, 2014. And I don't know if you're familiar with Vertex. They make packs, bags, pants, stuff like that. So I was the vice president of that brand, and I saw some white space to get in the commercial market with the low profile carry bags.
OnX is the title sponsor of our podcast here at the Fair Chase, and it's a must-have app for all of us who love to explore the outdoors. Whether you're hunting or hiking or fly fishing, OnX gives you detailed, accurate maps right at your fingertips. With property boundaries, topographical features, and trail data, you'll always know where you are and where you're headed. You'll also likely be able to figure out where that big buck is headed to. Plus, their offline maps mean you're covered even in the most remote locations. OnX is the ultimate tool for outdoor navigation, making every adventure safer and more enjoyable. Download OnX today and explore with confidence.
Because at that time, every concealed carry bag kind of looked like had Molly on it, and it looked like a carry bag. So I went out and found a designer, and we designed the Vertex bag program. So that kind of got me into the commercial market. And then from there, got recruited to go into a company called Rio Ammunition, selling shotgun shells, which I was like, oh, I kind of know, I can sell shotgun. That's a whole nother world.
Oh, it's
Trap shooters, like, and they're, I mean, I grew up saying pull, but you go see these 75-year-old guys and you make fun of them, and then you go shoot against them and they smoke you.
right.
So that's kind of my transition into full-time commercial. And like I said, after that went to be a director role at another suppressor company. And then 3 years ago, got recruited to come over here, and, love it here at Huxwrx.
Well, it's been, recently an interesting time in like the suppressors. Huxwrx is a suppressor technology company, but I mean, suppressors have been more of a hot button issue lately.
Yeah, with if people don't know, during one of the big things of the big beautiful bill is it reduced the tax stamp from from $200 to $0. So there's still an NFA item. I don't know how deep you want me to go into
Yeah, why
that.
don't you give a little background to just the basics? What is that? How that works? A lot of our
Yeah,
folks.
so I think it was 1934, they passed the National Firearms Act and created a registry for suppressors, short barrel shotguns, and short barrel rifles. So anything under 16 inches for the shotgun and the rifle. And this was during Prohibition. And so,
Hmm.
if you think of the Al Capone days and all that other stuff, where they were using the, Chicago typewriter, I think is the nickname for the Thompson
Yep.
machine gun. And at the time, $200 was really expensive. So it was kind of a lawmaker's way to regulate suppressors um, and short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns. And then Hollywood's done a really bad job of portraying what suppressors actually are and what they do.
Right.
So if you watch John Wick and all this other stuff where they're walking down a terminal shooting at each other, that's highly unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so what most people don't know, if you've not shot suppressed, it's not an assassin's tool or anything like that. It's a safety tool. That's why we are a safety company.
Mhm.
It protects your hearing, and the way it works is a suppressor is designed to capture the gases that are exiting the bore of your firearm, cool them down before they enter the atmosphere, and that's what makes it quiet. But it's still out. If you think a jackhammer is super quiet, then you know you need to get your hearing checked. But a lot of times suppressors are going to be in that 130 to 140 decibel range, and so you can't change the law of physics. They're a law for a reason. It's not just a good idea, but once that projectile leaves the barrel going faster than the speed of sound, you're going to get a supersonic crack. So that alone is going to be, give you, it's not that quiet. So, but what suppressors are really good for, especially on the hunting side, actually I'll get into that later. I'm sorry,
Yeah. No, you're
my
good.
brain went a little off tangent, but, back to the big beautiful bill. So what it did is it reduced the fee for the tax stamp down to $0, and we believe that goes into effect January 1. And so what that will do is it lowers the barrier to entry for people that don't want to pay an additional $200. And so the way it would work is the way the purchase process works, you go to your local dealer that has a SOT, which is a special license that's not hard to get once they've got their FFL and get their SOT. You go in, you fill out what's called a Form 4, you submit it and now everything is done. You can still do it the old snail mail way and mail them in to the processing center, but most people do it electronically. So you can upload you have to do fingerprint cards, which a lot of dealers, if they've got a kiosk, they can go and do that right there. Same thing with uploading a passport photo, just as long as it's on a light color background. So the process is actually very simple. It can be daunting if you don't know if you've never done it before, if you have a dealer that is not very helpful, but dealers are getting smarter and better every day. So with the passing of, this a long way to, get to the answer to your question. The big beautiful bill is going to reduce that barrier to entry. So we suspect that more and more people are going to start using suppressors because they didn't want to, have to pay extra $200. And so the nice thing about that is now you'll just pay for the price of the suppressor. You'll still have to do your paperwork. A lot of people, I've heard people, oh, I don't want to be on a registry, this, that, and the other. Well, I mean, I think if the federal government wants to come after you, like if they like,
This isn't going to be the thing stopping out. This episode is brought to you by 2O Gear, innovators in technical hunting clothing. 2O is a newer company. It's based right here in Michigan. And whether you're hunting elk in the mountains or chasing antelope in the plains or traipsing through swamps after that ruddy buck, 2O has you covered with premium jackets and pants, merino wool layers, everything you could possibly need to stay comfortable in the woods. Their products are engineered for functionality and durability, ensuring you stay protected in any conditions. Plus, their camo is really effective. We're big fans. So don't take our word for it, though. Go to 2ogear.com and check it out.
they're going to figure something out. So, but it's a personal preference but the over the last 10 years, suppressor sales have really boomed, and it really started last year, skyrocketing when the processing times went way down. And so, when I bought my first suppressor, in 20, I think 14 or 15. It took, I think 12 to 14 months. And since then it has averaged anywhere. I mean, the fastest I'd gotten one, I think was 5 months, but then, 9 to 12 months was kind of average. And I've got, I think 18 or so, suppressors, personally. And, so what happened is with the e-forms, so now it's done all electronically. Those wait times went way down. If you're filing, there's two ways to do it. You can file as an individual or you can file on a trust. So the individual is you walk into a gun store, you fill out your form 4 and you're filing as an individual to be the person that owns that suppressor. Or you can do an NFA trust, which allows you to add additional people to it as responsible parties. So the good thing about a trust, um, is that if I, if you came down to Texas and you wanted to go, and go to do a pig hunt or whatever, and you wanted to borrow one of my suppressors, if I have it as an individual, I can't let you have that suppressor and not be, in my presence.
Right.
But if I add you to my trust as a responsible party, and it's very simple, depending on what trust you get. But the one I had, you literally, I add you, you can add in for a specific period of time. I can add you for a weekend, add you for a month, or I can leave it open ended, which is really good, especially if you have, family members on your
Yes, yeah.
um, so I could let my brother use my suppressor as long as he's a responsible party on my trust. You just, get a simple form notarized and then he's good to go. So once you do that, those are the two options. If you're new to suppressors, again, you can do it as an individual. Benefit of that is it's a little bit quicker from the form time because the background check goes a little bit quicker, or you can do it as a trust, which gives you flexibility, to add and remove people. The thing about a trust though is, once you set it up, uh, all the people that are on the trust as responsible parties, if you buy another suppressor or another NFA item, they also have to submit fingerprints, passports, and do the background. So it can take a little bit longer. But again, all of my stuff is on a trust. You can get individual trusts. There's trusts that are set up like silencer shops, individual single shot trust. Each suppressor has its own trust. So the serial number is the name of the trust. And then, so it gives you flexibility if you ever want to, let your kids, I've got my son, my daughter, once they become of age, and if they want to, if they're living out of state and they want to go deer hunting, I want them to have a suppressor. So I'll be able to just add them as a responsible party and go from there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, like you said, it's been a lot of new stuff has been happening, that's been driving kind of interest in it lately. So you mentioned the safety side of things, kind of Huxwrx is a safety company. So, you know, dive a little bit more into that. Like what are we safe? How are
Yeah, so Huxwrx stands for Human Exposure Workshop, and we rebranded. The original company was Operator Suppressor Systems, or OSS, and we rebranded a couple years ago, because when you shoot suppressed, a traditional baffled suppressor. So what, Hiram Maxim is the guy that the Maxim machine gun. He's the person that is, invented the suppressor back in the early 1900s. And he's also the same person that invented the muffler for, vehicles. Um, and so basically, if you've ever heard, people refer to, suppressors as gun mufflers, that's why. And so the concept is pretty simple. The same thing on your vehicle that is on a suppressor traditionally. Series of baffles that allow the hot gases to go in there, cool them down before entering the atmosphere. And so that technology hasn't really changed that much since the early 1900s. So traditional baffled suppressors, while they're very effective in, mitigating sound, or in reducing the sound, if you're on a semi-automatic or fully automatic platform, what that does is those gases have to go somewhere. So it's going to follow the path of least resistance. So in a traditional baffled suppressor, those gases fill up and then they're going to exit the bore line, but there's still a lot of gas in there. So it comes back in the operating system. So if you're shooting, an AR or any semi-automatic, platform, even, semi-automatic hunting rifles and stuff like that, what that gas is going to do is it's going to push that bolt carrier, and bolt back a lot faster than the manufacturer designed it to do. and it's also going to push gas into your face.
Yeah.
So imagine being a right-handed shooter and your ejection port is right here. Every time you pull the trigger, you're getting that gas right in your face. My gas is very toxic, actually. It's got three things in there that are really not good for you: ammonia, hydrogen cyanide, and carbon dioxide. Or not. I'm having a brain fart, but anyway,
Yeah.
those are really good. And so what we did was what OSS, flow through technology, now Huxwrx flow through technology does is it actually, the gases, when they go into the suppressor, you go forward, then they change direction in the suppressor, and they change direction again, and then go out of the ports on the end of the suppressor. And so it doesn't increase that bolt velocity, but you don't get all that gas in your face.
Yeah.
And so a big portion of our customer base is the professional end user, whether that be, military, federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, or international users. So when when you shoot a high volume of suppressed rounds and you're getting exposed to that gas, it has immediate, midterm, and long-term health effects. And we did a deep dive study on that, and we were able to show through our chief scientist what effects that has on the operator, if you will. And so, as a safety company, we approach these entities and we're able to show them, how that affects the end user when they're on target and stuff like that. Now that transitions over to the commercial side, in the hunting community, is yes, it's very toxic to shoot those things. But what I'll call, Bubba, your average end user, who's smoking a cigar, drinking scotch while he's driving around on a trying to shoot pigs. He may or may not care if he gets exposed to that. But the way I kind of relate that is, you can go stand and breathe the exhaust of your F-350, but why would you?
Right.
And the other thing is with that increased bolt velocity and gas coming back into the gun, it makes the gun run harder. So it's a sharper recoil impulse. It makes it run dirtier. So there's a lot more stuff going in the gun, so you have to clean it more frequently. And it's also possibly susceptible to leaves your firearm susceptible to weapons malfunctions, because the bolt is going faster than the manufacturer designed it. So that's, as a safety company, that's, it's not just about hearing. It's also about the noxious gases. The easiest way to explain it is burn pits. Everybody's familiar with burn pits from, war and terror. The boys and girls coming back from overseas that have all these health problems, where you're getting a lot of those same chemicals inhaled when you shoot suppressor with a traditional baffled suppressor. So that's kind of what sets us apart. You hear low blowback but flow through is we're the ones that invented that technology, and we're the pioneers of it. And so we stay on the leading edge of that.
Hunters, listen up. Latitude Outdoors builds gear for the mobile hunter. Their saddle hunting systems are designed to cut weight, not performance, so you can cover more ground and set up fast, wherever the hunt takes you. From dense hardwoods to open ridges, their mobile-focused gear keeps you efficient and adaptable. Check out their full range at latitudeoutdoors.com. How much quieter does it make your rifle? Like for a hunter, like say the guys, we'll pick like a 30-06. Like how much 300 Win Mag? How much quieter are you gonna make a 300 Win Mag?
Significantly. So where you don't need earplugs. So decibel reduction is a subjective thing, because I can't say, because there's so many different things out there as far as atmospheric conditions, barrel length, ammunition type, all that other stuff. But if you've ever hunted in a box blind and pulled the trigger on a 300 Win Mag or a 270 or whatever, you get your bell rung.
Oh yeah.
And so most people, I know I grew up, deer hunting out of box blinds in Louisiana and Mississippi, and shooting a 270, and I never wore earplugs.
No.
And so the great thing about suppressors, especially with hunting and with kids, is you don't have to wear earplugs. And so it's gonna take that bite of that round out and get it under. What you want to do is get it sub 140, to be not damaging to your hearing. And so the nice thing about that, growing up, not growing up, my kids growing up, I was able to talk them through the shot, whereas I don't have to pull their ear pro off, or I don't have to have magnifying. Kids are, my kids were always, if they didn't have something keep their focus on it. It was a little bit scatterbrained, especially when they're little. Once they got older, not a big deal, but able to talk to them, like if you hear a snap in the woods and stuff like that, you can have, those whisper conversations where you're not having to pull their hearing protection or pull out an earplug or anything like that. And, especially for new shooters, not just, kids, it takes the big bang away. So it makes it very more manageable. It's not as scary. It reduces recoil tremendously. So my daughter is, she's 17, but she's 4'11" and 96 pounds. I can hand her a hunting rifle and she can shoot it no problem because that recoil is not going to be there. And the loud, the explosion that's happening right, a couple inches from your face, it's dampened quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes you a better shooter because, you're not anticipating the recoil, anticipating the the loud explosion sound. Like it's less of a, you get that jump and you shoot. I mean, muzzle brakes will do help with the kick of the rifle, but and we actually have this on film. When I was a kid, I had some ear damage in one ear, and I went on this moose hunt with my 300 Win Mag and a muzzle brake on it, and I shoot once. He drops. He ends up getting back up, and in that time, I had pulled off my ear probe, shot him again, and I kid you not, my ears from that hunt 2 years ago have not recovered. Like it is, I went into the doctor. It's permanent damage now because the Mohill brake sends the sound even louder back. Yeah, and so it's right. That's my left ear, which is I'm a right-handed shooter, which is the ear that gets damaged. So I'm like 30% hearing on my left side now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've all been in the range and you're under a covered deal and somebody shows up with a, Magnum caliber rifle with a muzzle brake and you could be 50 yards down range and, you think everything's fine. And then, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah, it's drowned. So now, yeah. So for follow-up shots to your point, my daughter, last year shot at 8 point and, dropped it and we're sitting there and then all this, I mean, it's the craziest thing. It literally dropped it. It was, doing the death kick and then it just popped up like nothing was wrong and then took off running. And she was able to put 2 more rounds into it at a full sprint. But again, staying on target and then getting those follow-up shots, are really helpful when you have a suppressor. Down at, Texas, we have a, feral hog problem and I pig hunt quite a bit at night. And so when you get in a pack of pigs, that you could have, small group of 10, but I mean, big ones, I've seen groups of 100 plus. And so when you start going to war with these things and they're running, that's where you really, it really shines to be able to stay on target. You don't have that muzzle rise. So, so the nice thing, especially about our suppressors with not increasing your bolt velocities are if you're shooting a semi-auto or even a full auto, I mean, not that everybody has machine guns, but I highly recommend shooting pigs with machine guns. It's more of a novelty because you don't hit them half the time. It's really effective, but I mean, they call it a giggle switch for a reason.
Yeah.
But no, the benefit of shooting suppressed, especially like in a nighttime hog hunting situation, you can stay on target and get a lot more rounds into the pigs versus just spraying and praying and having all that muzzle rise. Even with them 5.56, I mean, it's a night and day difference when you shoot our suppressors on those type of platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, they're so common in Europe. Are they just not common here because of how difficult it is? Like, why is there like?
Yeah, but again, I go back to the villainization that a lot of it's just misinformation because what we try to do is education. There's a great organization called the American Suppressor Association, and what they do is they focus just on suppressors, and so they were a big reason to get the tax stamp reduced in the big beautiful bill. And what they do is they go out and they educate people, not just, end users, but lawmakers. Because again, if you never, most lawmakers have never even pulled the trigger on a firearm, much less one suppressed. And so they rely on, what they hear, what they read, and all this other stuff. So what we try to do as an industry is educate those people. And to your point, in Europe, you can buy them over the counter. It's they're called moderators. And it's we jokingly say it's, one of our, our tagline is for the civilized. It's a civilized way to shoot.
Right.
was once you start shooting suppressed, you won't ever want to shoot unsuppressed.
No.
It just makes it's a much more pleasurable experience from everything from not having to wear ear pro. We still do recommend you wear hearing protection because that repeated, even if you're at that 135 or repeated, the way that it's written, and I'm not a scientist, so don't quote me on this, but it's 100 under 140 decibels, but it's a certain time period. So if you get that repeated, you wouldn't use it, if you've got a jackhammer, like I used that earlier, you're probably going to want, if you're going to be jackhammering all day, if you're going to be shooting all day, it's a good idea to have ear pro. So we still recommend you wear hearing protection, but you don't have to wear the big muffs. You can get the little foamy stuff like that. But it's a much more pleasurable shooting experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it nicer. And I mean, like, I was in Canada and they don't allow it at all. There's
Yeah.
no suppressor, which is, I just thought was
Yeah,
wild.
it's one of those things where it's a lot of I live in Texas. It's funny. I live in Texas. I mean, which is about as pro gun state as you can get.
Yeah.
And I still run into people on a regular basis. They ask me what I do, and they're like, "Oh, don't you need a special license, or aren't those illegal?" And stuff
Yeah.
like
That's
that.
what everybody thinks.
Yeah, and so suppressors, especially the last 10 years, have become much more mainstream, but they still are nowhere near. I don't know what percentage of gun owners own suppressors, but it's very small.
Yeah.
And the way people usually get into suppressors is because a buddy there, they usually go to the range, or they'll go on a hunt or something like that, and their buddy will have one, and they shoot that, and then they, conversation, oh, aren't these hard to get? This, that, and the other, and it makes a huge difference when you shoot. I mean, my uncle is in his 80s, and he's got a Barrett 338 Lapua that he always brags about and stuff like that. It's funny because he acts like I don't know anything about guns, and he used to, like, he's worked for NASA. He's literally the smartest person I know, and it's just comical because I'll just say, oh yeah, Uncle Jack, all this other stuff. Well, I've been trying to get him to get a suppressor for this gun for, I don't know, 5-10 years. And finally it like clicked. He was like, I think I want a suppressor. And so I got him a suppressor, and he's like, oh, this is a night and day difference. And I don't, it doesn't rattle my teeth when I shoot. And I was like,
Yeah.
so even those, people that are not on the cutting edge of firearms technology, those people like my uncle are starting to realize, oh, I've been missing this my whole life. And so, whether it's, a handgun, or, the easiest way to get somebody like hooked on suppressors is let them shoot a bolt action 22 with subsonics.
Yeah.
Because the gun noise is more, I mean, that's what we'll call Hollywood quiet, but it's a subsonic 22.
Right.
And as long as it's quiet
anyways.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So those are really fun. And I've got a Bergara 22 trainer, which looks like, it's got a heavy barrel. It looks like a traditional hunting rifle.
Yeah.
Even the magazine's big. And so I go to demos, especially I like messing with cops are the best because they have all these barricades they can shoot off of it. I'm like, oh, you got to shoot this. Now lean into it. There's a lot of recoil. Now, like I didn't go off. I was like, no, it went off. It's a 22. Yeah. So those are fun. But I'm a big proponent of starting early. All of my kids started shooting very early, and I had a suppressed Ruger 1022, and that's what they learn how to shoot on.
Yeah.
Because from a fundamental standpoint, when they're trying to get going, if you get them started down the, you can scare them really easily and create some hesitation of them wanting to shoot. And so that's another great tool for suppressors, is not just for kids but for first time shooters, because it can be scary, and it can be intimidating, but once you put a suppressor on there, it takes that bite out of the and sharpness, and like, oh, this isn't bad. And then they, you get them shooting some steel and reaction targets and stuff like that. And so I'm a big proponent of suppressors, for that reason alone.
Yeah. When you throw one on a rifle, does it affect how your sights are set up?
Yeah. So you're changing the harm anytime you add something to the end of the barrel. I don't know if you've ever seen slow motion videos, but your barrel actually does a whip. I mean, it's harmonics. Now it's very minimal, but when you're talking about accuracy, especially, we're talking about, long distance hunting and stuff like that. every little bit of harmonics matters. So you do get what's called point of impact or POI shift
Yeah.
when you add a suppressor. Now, what a good suppressor will have minimal and repeatable POI shift. So that's a good thing about our suppressors, not just to talk about Huxwrx today, but we have very minimal and very repeatable POI shifts. So once you know that, the majority of the time you put your suppressor on, um, you're going to leave it there or you take it off to clean it. But when you put it back on, it's going to be right where it's supposed to be. But you do have to know what your POI shift is if you're going to be going from unsuppressed to suppressed and back and forth, because you're affecting the harmonics of the barrel. So it's a thing. It's nothing, but it's not a problem. It's just you need to be aware of it.
Yeah. Just to judge, just be ready ahead of time. You can't just throw it on and head out.
Yeah, I mean, I've done things like, I mean, last or 2 years ago, I was in a, like I said, my dearly is 45 minutes from my house. So on a whim, I can just jump in the truck and haul butt up there. Well, I forgot my suppressor. And so I knew what my POI shift was, on that gun because I measured it. And so I didn't shoot anything, but if I had to, I knew where I needed to aim because I figured that out on the front end.
What was it for you? How different was your aim?
It's on that gun. I think it's about a half inch low, about not far off at 100, but where I hunt, I don't have those big a difference, big distance. I think the farthest shot I can get on a feeder, down into where are you out of?
Michigan.
Okay, can y'all hunt on feeders?
It depends who you ask.
Well, I mean, Texas hunting isn't really that difficult, and we were talking a little bit earlier. I'm nervous as hell about this mule deer hunt in Wyoming because I'm used to box blinds and heaters, and it ain't that hard. But um, so but
Yeah.
from a distance standpoint, if talk about this, shooting distance. So I'm going to mule deer hunt in Wyoming. So if you're shooting
By the way,
flag,
for everybody listening, so
yeah,
you guys are filming that, right?
yeah, and I'm scared to death to go hunting with that mountain goat.
Yeah.
Um, I
And
know
the
not.
good thing I always tell my wife though is if I were to fall and break my leg, I'm pretty sure Joe could carry me out and I'd be fine. Yeah. If he did that, I'd have to quarter him out, but
Yeah,
that's,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, shooting distance, which we might get a 300 to 500 yard shot. And I'm comfortable shooting that far. But if you've got, say it, a POI shift of half inch, low, half inch left, whatever, if at 100 yards, that's a massive change at 500 yards.
Yeah.
So knowing that on the front end, but I don't plan on shooting unsuppressed. So
No, good. That would be weird. Yeah, it would be strange. No, that's awesome. Well, like I said, I wanted to bring you on just to fill people in. We'll get some questions. Friends of ours will ask you questions about suppressors and what's been going on, and so I figured you are the right guy to talk to about it. Yeah, for
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, if you haven't shot suppressed and the why, all it takes is one time. I'll give you an example. I was doing some interviews for a sales rep position. And I like to do those at a range because I want to, a lot of what our sales guy do are live fire demos. So I want to see, I want to see, are you capable, competent handling a firearm and all this other stuff. But we were at this range and there was this guy, he was probably in his 60s or 70s. And he was just like, I don't, that's a waste of money. You don't need this, that, and other. And I had a 7-inch 5.56 with a break on it. And I did it on purpose. But I said, really? And we were shooting under covers. I said, shoot this gun. He's like, I've shot ARs before. I said, just shoot it. And he had ear pro and all this other stuff. And on a 5.56 with a break with a 7-inch platform, I mean, it'll rattle your feelings.
oh yeah,
And so he pulled it. He's like, oh, that's, horrible. And I put the suppressor on and he shot it. He's like, oh, it does that. And he's like, I was like, yeah. So do you hunt? And he's like, yeah. What do you have? 30-06. And started talking to him about it. Well, he ended up buying 4 suppressors over the next 3 weeks.
or nice.
And that's not because I'm a great sales rep. It's because I showed him. And that's, a lot of gun stores and ranges will have demo days. And so I encourage you to, and if they're, that's all our sales team does is go out and educate and do those live fire events. So if you don't have a place, if you've got a local range, if you ask them, hey, if they're selling suppressors, hey, why don't you, get them to do it because they want to do it because they'll sell more, product. But also it's a great mechanism for those first time shooters of suppressed weapons to be able, or firearms, excuse me, to go out and try before you buy and see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge deal. And so, all right. Well, if for people who are listening, if they have questions, can they get a hold of you guys or what's the
Yeah, we have a great customer service team. You can go to Huxwrx, HUXWRX.com. Contact us, has all our, we have email support, if you, or support at Huxwrx.com. We can answer all your questions. A lot of people want to know, if I have this firearm, what would you recommend? And we're there to help.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. No, I appreciate you coming on, Darrell. Good to talk to you. And like I said, super helpful. We definitely encourage people to use them and think they're great. So appreciate you taking the time to explain.
Thanks so much for having me.